here, Louise. Say hi to Christian. He's going to be on this show.
Hi.
He's actually thrilled to see
Luis,
you.
he is. I mean, that's his exciting voice.
I've been up since 4:30 in the morning, so that's why.
Oh, sorry. That's terrible.
Wait, what's the name of the show again? Oh, on it.
Find something more. Find your way home with Kendra and Christine.
That's good. It's
Got
You
it.
don't. You don't have that memorized by now?
Just got that.
I don't remember what I ate this morning.
dangerous.
You're listening to Radio Maria, Christian Voice in Your Home. We're now presenting the show, Find Something More, Find Your Way Home, with Kendra and Christine.
Thank you, Louise. Hello, Radio Land, those who are streaming on radiomaria.us, and of course, those who are watching on YouTube at Queen of Peace Media. We are back, and you who might be on YouTube are saying, how come there's 3 heads on the screen? So I am just going to say hello to Christine and her son, Christian, who's joining us today.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello. Yes, he's not just a goiter on my neck.
You have something hanging off your chin,
Yeah,
and it
I'm
looks
going to
like
get surgery soon.
a 15-year-old young man there. So let's figure out why Christian is joining us. And before we start, dude, I gotta say, you are my hero. I mean,
Thank you.
I have
Means a lot.
just it and you mean a lot to me. I've just been thinking about it for the whole week. And
Wow.
without keeping the world in suspense, I couldn't wait until you got on the show.
Wow.
So let's just fill the world in, and then we're going to
Okay.
pepper you and Mom with questions. Last week, you may have watched, or you might want to watch, that I basically shared with the world my shameful addiction to marijuana that I hid for many, many years, decades, as a matter of fact. And I kidded myself and fooled myself, lied to myself that I didn't have a problem. And so all of a sudden, I find out from Christine through a phone call that Christian, you came down to speak to her that night after the show. I'm just wondering, what prompted you to go talk to your mom, and what did you talk to your mom about?
It was kind of funny. I had no intention of telling her anything that night. We do a thing where we go to adoration together every Tuesday. But the adoration place was closed, and I just wanted to talk. And my mom is a counselor, so she's able to get things out of people really easily. It's a very special gift. I'm glad she is able to do that. Okay, hold on. Let me restart.
Okay.
So I went into the prayer room with her, and I just started talking to her, saying how I was confused about my high school and what I was going through. And she had no idea about anything that was going on. No one in my family did. I was able to hide it really well because I wasn't stupid with it.
Meaning leaving out evidence of...
Yeah,
Weed
leaving
smoking.
evidence and
Mhm.
making sure my eyes weren't red and
How
things
did you
like
cover
that.
up the eyes, by the way?
eye drops.
You had Visine? Something like that.
Clear eyes. Just
Okay.
making sure that didn't happen. So I went in, then I just said, I have something to talk to you about in the future. And she just knew something was up right then and there. She knew something was wrong, so she kept pressing me. She asked if I was addicted to porn. I said no. She asked if I was addicted to other things. And then she said drugs, just in general. And I just kind of hesitated, and I didn't give really a straight answer, so I guess she kind of knew that was the answer. It just felt good to release myself from that burden, I guess. And,
So at the
yeah.
end of the day, you didn't expect to talk to her about it, but you did want to say that you were wanting to talk to her about it later. You just didn't expect it to be that moment.
I was trying to do that for months. I kept going to her saying I was confused, but I never really expected to tell her the whole truth. That it just never crossed my mind, because I knew
So
what I was doing was wrong, but I didn't really feel like that in my heart. some sort of way. Because I loved my friends and I loved hanging out with them, I just didn't really like what we were doing.
So that's where the confusion came into play.
Yeah.
That's what you mean by confused.
Yeah.
Christine, what were you thinking when all of this was happening, as you were hearing your son kind of share something that I don't know if many teenagers feel comfortable sharing with their parents? And I want to go back to Christian after you share your feelings. Like, how did it feel? You told me relief, but let's get into it a little bit more. After Christine, tell me, what was going through your mind as a loving parent, as your child is, basically pouring his heart out to you?
Well, before that, in fact, an hour ago, we were upstairs talking about this, and he said, I was trying to tell you all along, and I'm an intuitive counselor who had no clue. And I said, what were your clues that I didn't pick up on? You'd come to me and say, I'm confused, and I'd say, what about? And you'd say, I don't know. And I'd say, are you sure? And then he'd say, I don't want to talk about it. So he tells me now, or an hour ago, that he wanted me to probe and pull, and I didn't feel like it was my right to probe that much because he was pushing back. So it's very interesting in retrospect to find out that was a call for help that I was not aware of. And so when I wasn't aware, I was a very clueless mom who prides herself in thinking that she's not a clueless person. So I was very broadsided, and I was worried about his technology use. I didn't like the fact he's always on screens, and I know that that's bad for kids, and it makes it so that you can't focus very much on one thing. You're always scatterbrained, and I was noticing that in him, and that he'd be up in his room a lot alone with some kind of screen. And so we put in, what is it called that you hate, Christian, that blocks pornography? What's the
Well,
program called?
that's not the reason they put this blocking system in. That's not really my
What's
problem.
it called?
It's called RPACT.
So I knew, a lot of kids and adults are watching pornography, so we put this thing called Our Pact, OUR space PACT on his phone, and so we were monitoring things like that to make sure he wasn't going down the porn road, but just never thought about him going down the drug road. Just it was something we didn't assume he would do. So he's sitting there and he says, there's something I want to tell you, but it'll take me months to get up the courage. So you don't do that to Christine Watkins and expect her not to probe at that point. At that point, I saw, the light went off and I was going to go in. And so I immediately started naming different things and narrowed it down to marijuana, and then he immediately said yes. So my question for you, honey, is what prevented you from coming to us when it first started happening, or even later? What did you think would happen if you told us, and then what actually happened when you told me and Dad?
I was just scared of Dad, really. I wasn't
He's not
ever,
a bad guy.
I wasn't ever scared of what would happen if I came and talked to you, but I love hanging out with friends, and I felt freed after I told my mom, because they were thinking I'm like this amazing kid that and my mom kept saying how proud of me she was, but like in my heart I always said to myself, there's nothing to be proud of, what I'm doing and how I'm going about my life right now. It felt horrible. I was feeling horrible all the time. So
Was it more that you liked the drug, or that you wanted to be liked by your peers? What was it that was motivating you?
I wanted to be liked by my friends, because it's sort of a norm for the more popular crowd to get into things like that. So I wanted just to do whatever they were doing and be a part of that. So I was sort of stuck in between, because my parents have raised me up to be a Catholic and to know the faith and to know what's right from wrong. So I always knew what I was doing was wrong. Eventually, I did start liking the feeling of being high and being with friends. It does feel good, but it's not really. It's a more temporary type of relief, I guess. There's no real end relief in it. It isn't really real. It isn't really you. You're not really yourself. You may be laughing about, having a good time, but it isn't you, is what I'm trying to say.
So how long was it that or when did you start? And how did you start? Did someone, was it a vaping pen or something at school, or did you what in what way did you smoke it, and how and when?
What was the first moment too? I'm curious.
I don't know. It's not like I don't remember.
It's true. It does mess with your memory.
It does mess with your memory, but it wasn't. It's nothing
mother.
like that.
Yeah,
well, the first time I didn't even know what it was. First time, I thought it was. You guys are saying vape pens and things like that. Well, in our teenage culture, I guess you could call it, vaping is different than smoking weed. There's two different things. Vaping is nicotine, and nicotine is just temporary. It's like a rush to your head, but we don't call it vape pens. So I just want to make that clear before
Clarify.
I keep talking.
So what do you call it when it's not a vape nicotine cigarette substitute? What do you guys call it when you're basically using the same type of device to smoke pot? What is it called?
We just call it a pen.
Okay.
So you were handed a pen and didn't know what it was?
I knew it was some sort of vice. I just thought it was nicotine, though. I didn't even know what it was, and I was told after, and it's been sort of like a joke. Joke, I guess you could call it, funny, even though it's kind of serious.
Yeah, right.
Then the Super Bowl is when I remember the first time I really got high, I guess. And that's the first time. I didn't like it at all because we were walking around and I kept getting shivers, cold and hot shivers all the time, over and over, and it wouldn't stop. And I kept on praying to Mary, like, man, I'll never do this again if you can just get me out of this. So I just sort of stopped for a long time after that. Then sophomore year, I don't know when, I don't know an exact time, but it sort of started up again, and I didn't get the same feeling that I did that first time. I only felt good, and so I didn't get that feeling that I was doing something wrong. Even though I knew I was doing something wrong, I wasn't scared about the repercussions or anything like that.
Was there a moment before you took that pen that you had some thoughts about it, or was there no resistance that sophomore time?
I always had resistance, but that resistance is easily overcome by peer pressure. That it wasn't really a resistance that was really worth anything. It was more of a resistance so I could just say to myself that I resisted a little bit, even though it was sort of just trying to stall before I had to do it eventually.
You felt like you had to do it eventually?
Yeah.
In order to fit in?
Of course.
Interesting. Okay, if you are just tuning in, we are on Radio Maria, and we're streaming on radiomaria.us, and we are on YouTube at Queen of Peace Media with Christine's 15-year-old son, Christian, who is sharing a little bit about his experience with marijuana and also the experience that he had talking to mom about it. So, okay, let's recap. You didn't really like it the first time. You had a freaky experience. Second time, maybe you had a different brand or a different type of pen, if that's what you want to call
It's
it,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
And, so you're feeling, all right, I'm just going to do it because I'm here and people are going to look at me weird if I don't. And so when you were talking about it with mom, that's the biggest thing, because I find that if I was in your shoes, I might be pretty scared. You said you were scared about your dad, not so much of your mom, and I can get that because I know your mom, and she's a counselor, and I'm sure she's had so many things that have been poured to her, and she's just a loving, caring person.
Mhm.
So you probably knew there's probably not too much to fear there, but what was going through your mind that you can share? My point of asking this is for you to share with the people and the kids that are out there, and I hate to say kids, young men, teenagers that are feeling the same way you do, but they don't know how to bring it up to their parents. What
I
what
am
can you tell them?
so sorry. My headphone fell out, so I didn't hear the first part of the question. So,
Okay, my bad. Okay, here's the deal. I'll cut straight to the chase. How did you feel when you talked to mom? How did you feel when you talked to dad? And then when it was done, how did you feel? Because I think it's important for the young people out there today that are maybe going through the same thing you are, that they want to tell their parents what's going on, but they're kind of scared, worried about punishment. I mean, I think about some people going to confession. They don't want to go because they're worried about the punishment, but when you come out, you feel amazing. So share a little bit about both the experience with mom and dad, because we definitely want to hear that, and then how you felt after.
um, so my experience with my mom and my dad, I wasn't so much worried of that as how my friends would react.
Mm.
I didn't. If I was punished, I'd be fine with that. But it's sort of just a regular thing for my friend group. So I just was scared of getting backlash from sort of stopping, and I wasn't so much scared of what my mom or my dad would think, because I know they would understand. Your parents would love if you came and told them yourselves. If you come to your parents yourself out of your own free will, you won't get as much of a punishment as if they caught you up. It's a whole different sort of perspective and a whole different type of way of going about it. Because if you go and you tell your parents, they try and help you work through it and try and help you find solutions. It's more getting past it. If you just get caught, then it's more of shock and punishment right away. There's no real help there, and I think that's a problem too. I think there should be some help from the parents. I think there should be some more understanding than just punishment and cutting people off from everything they know. You can take things away and you can ground people, but if they have that urge still to do it, then they're going to do it, and there's really nothing you can do about it. I wouldn't be scared about telling my parents. I was scared about telling my friends, and even
Okay.
that was, they were so understanding, even though they were very bummed out. My mom and I talked for like maybe 4 or 5 hours about it. We stayed
Mm-hmm.
up late. It was like 1:30 a.m. and then we watched a TV show afterwards too. It was just more casual. It was great. I felt so good to tell her. Then my dad, I was real worried, but I knew that I didn't really have anything to worry about, especially if I had my mom on my side. So I just went in, told dad as brief as possible, straight to the point as possible, that I got into drugs and it was hard to get out of peer pressure, things like that, just as straight to the point as possible. And he understood, and he was very loving about it, and there was really nothing to worry about with him because he's also an amazing dad.
Oh, see? Your parents love you, and I think you're totally spot on that if you end up telling them and coming to them versus hiding it and getting caught, it's a whole different dynamic, and the experience is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So
What would
what
you
did you do?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
can I ask, what would you suggest to a parent that does catch their teen in that, what would you suggest the parent do to help? What's the right reaction in general? Everybody's different, but...
Well, it's hard for secular parents to do anything about it because there's no real backing. There's no real reason that they'll actually care about. Of course, there's all the health problems. But a kid can just say, oh, that won't happen to me. Shrug it off and say, that's not, oh, it's a gateway drug. Oh, I won't let it be a gateway drug. Oh, it's not for me. It's not like that for me. It's easy to make an excuse to say, oh, it's not my problem.
I won't be the one.
I won't be the one.
Loss,
I won't be
I'll
the
1% exception.
Exactly.
That's a question I have. Were any of the repercussions going through your mind, or just
no?
Did you know of them, or did you not know that there were?
I knew that there was potential repercussions, and I knew what it made me feel stupid, when I was on it and when I was high. You're not smart. You might be happy and funny, but you are pretty dumb. You can do some stupid things, say some stupid things that are pretty funny, but it's just, you just do become stupid. But it is sort of a funny stupid, I guess. And it's not so much I was thinking of the repercussions of that. I was just thinking of the repercussions, of my soul and trying to make it to heaven, especially with our time like this. It was more that. It was way less repercussions of my health.
And I think that's awesome. I want to just, because we are going to have to take a break soon, but you had mentioned secular parents and parents with faith. And one of the things that I talked to your mom about was the fact that faith is a part of your family. I mean, you just said you go to adoration and you pray and you go to mass, and it's a part of family rosary and all of that, which I just want to say to every parent out there who thinks maybe their kids are falling away, they're not into their faith, that they're not really concerned about their soul, which, Christine, maybe you felt that way about, your son as he was growing up, like, I'm losing him to the world, I don't know. Yeah. Right? And then all of a sudden he's worried about his soul, and he's, it's crazy to hear that. And I just want to encourage everyone, I don't care where you're at on your faith journey, even if you're just barely even making it to mass on Sunday, share the faith. Talk about your relationship with God. Talk about how you feel when you go to mass, when you receive the Eucharist, the amazing spiritual things that happen to you, if you have them, right? But I think that has even been a big deal in my family. I just came to the faith, Christian, in case you don't know, just 6.5 years ago. I was an absolute secular nightmare. I mean, I wasn't even going to Christmas or Easter Mass of any kind, church, nothing, for 20 years. Nothing. So I just say that I find it awesome that you are sitting here thinking about your soul and getting to heaven and what pot could possibly do. That was the Spirit working in you, and your parents instilling that incredible faith in you, which I think is just, it's beyond words. So God bless you. When we
come back from the break, I can share how that was a struggle and the highlight that happened just 3 days ago. Yeah.
And I want to say that Christian was also, and I don't mean to throw any school under the bus, but you were going to a Catholic school. I think this is an epidemic. This is not something that doesn't go in the Catholic world. It's everywhere, especially when it's legal, because it's just became legal in Illinois, and people are waiting for 5 hours in like 20-degree weather. It was a 14-hour wait the first evening that it opened, which was New Year's Eve. It's insane. And by the way, the hours are still the same wait today. We're what? Oh. It's pathetic. It's really sad. All right. Well, when we come back on the other side of the break, we will talk a little bit more about what's going on with Christine and Christian, but I do want to find out about what happened with your friends, because I think that might have been, in my opinion, the scarier thing for me as well if I was in your situation, in your shoes. Alrighty, everyone, we will be back in a moment on Find Something More, Find Your Way Home with Kendra and Christine.
This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it.
I was trying to limit my ums.
You did good.
I didn't really answer any of the questions that you had. I just kind of...
There were not too many, but if we make it into a drinking game, I would have been drunk.
See, Luis, you need to get some sleep, man. You don't have your filter.
Oh, you're doing good. I was just playing.
You'll be doing it for my book too.
Which one's Kendra's book? Which one's Kendra's book?
She's got
The one that I have
she's
underneath
writing.
my table to label it
I
out.
can't see it.
The one I have
Luis,
underneath my bird cage.
I know, right? I mean, I should if I could reach through, I would punch you right in the nose. I would resort to
Here we're
violence.
going live. I'll be right back.
All right, don't forget the name. Don't forget the name of the
listening
show.
to radio.
So, Luis, you got to
Plus,
listen
I
to
don't
this.
want Sunday to get here. That's why.
Oh, why? What's Sunday?
A birthday.
Of you?
Yes.
Happy
What year?
Birthday.
Just gonna leave it like that.
What? Come on. I'm 49. Does that help?
Well, I'm way younger than that.
Right? Oh, nice. Yeah. You're right. There is no filter for you today. You don't know what you're saying.
And Luis, I hope you get some sleep. Thanks for being a pal.
I'm not gonna get any sleep until Monday.
Oh,
Have a great
Luis.
birthday, dude. Happy birthday.
birthday.
Oh my goodness. Happy birthday. I feel so bad for you.
You're listening to Radio Maria, Christian Voice in Your Home. We're now returning to the show. Find Something More, Find Your Way Home with Kendra and Christine.
Welcome back. It's so exciting. We have Christine Watkins and her adorable son, Christian, 15 years old, who is brave and awe-inspiring, telling us how he came to mom and came to dad and shared that he was smoking pot. And I find it amazing that he had a twinge of guilt through his faith. So he's brought up a couple of things that just intrigue me, because I was not raised with faith, and my whole life was not based on living a Christian life and living a moral life. So your raising in your family has been nothing but that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me, how did you so you didn't like it the first time, you tried it the second time. I have to ask, did you have your own pen that you had at your house?
I never had a pen. I've had a cart, and I've had wires that you hook up to the cart. So
no idea what that is.
Exactly. So I don't know. It's okay. That's so fine. That is so fine.
Loser mom. Loser mom.
Christian, this is Whatever, Loser. In case you've never seen that one before.
No.
Okay,
Turkey
so
kind of looks like a...
it does. Okay, so do the wires go into the cart and then somehow it starts it on fire and you smoke it? Is that how it works?
Not on fire, but
Okay. It smolders
something
it?
like that.
Okay.
And I had no idea. I just learned 2 hours ago that this was in his room.
Mm.
A house blessing. I just had no idea.
Got it.
I
Got
have
it.
to say, though, for a parent to hear something so shocking and so horrible, but also be so happy, it was the best and the worst conversation we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's this amazing kid who I love with all my heart. I would die for him. And here he's telling me that all this was under my nose and that he wants to stop and that he's going to change schools. We spent the last week changing schools because he chose in and of his own free will to be free from peer pressure, because he knows himself well enough not to put himself... He didn't even know the term avoiding near occasion of sin. He just did it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And knows
Wow.
that it's not a temptation for him if it's not around. And he knows he will fall if it's around, and he knows his friends won't necessarily stop. So he put all this together. And we're like, okay, we're changing. We're doing more of a Catholic homeschool thing now, with the 2 days a week I call it Uber Catholic.
Yeah, pretty Catholic.
I mean, you can't...
Knees below the shorts, can't go to the bathroom without a teacher
Your
looking.
knees are always below your shorts, but we won't get into that.
Skirts. Talking about, whoops.
Skirts below your knees.
There were, speaking of the faith being in the home, there were some key things that happened that injected the Spirit into Christian that led to this epiphany moment 3 nights ago. And one of them was Jesse Romero wrote a book called What's Wrong with Marijuana. And I was studying this to get some facts for our show last week where Kendra revealed her full-blown pot addiction of many years. And Christian saw this on the kitchen counter. And that was another stab of guilt that was part of what made him say more to me than he normally did, which is I'm confused. And then he opened it up. I had the tabs, and he read. Can you read, darling?
Well,
she just hit him in the face with the book. I love it.
She's using what I would say is I just saw this book around everywhere. I kept feeling, consumed in guilt because here's my mom, studying for this show, making preparations for. I didn't know you guys had a show together. I didn't know it was on Radio Maria, anything like that.
You didn't know any of that?
No. So she's just got this book, and I just keep seeing it around. I feel horrible because I'm looking at this book, and I'm looking at my parents and my family, just thinking, like, is this what I really want to do with my life? Is this how I want to keep going? And it just kind of hurt me to think about that. So, but one thing that I was doing, I was sort of trying to make a compromise of myself, so I would be as good of a person as I can. I would do all my chores, pray with my family, and do everything I could in their eyes to make sure that I was a good person in their eyes. And then I would go do things with my friends that they were like smoking and stuff like that just isn't good, I guess you can say. And so that night, and it was not 3 days ago, it was a week ago, so I just wanted to get that also cleared up.
I was going to mention when you were in here dancing up and down, that one.
Oh, okay.
There's something else I'm going to mention that happened 3 days ago, yeah.
Okay, well, that wasn't this one.
No.
Okay. So, I read, can you show me in the Bible that smoking marijuana is morally wrong? So, I was making this assumption, like, God, put it on this earth and something like that. I don't know. It was just to make myself feel better about myself. So my mom underlined different things that she was going to talk about on your show. And she underlined, do not conform yourselves to this age, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and pleasing and perfect. And then she underlined another line, how can you have a pure, holy mind of Jesus if you are under the influence of marijuana? And you can't. So that really kind of got me, and I just kept thinking about it. And that's the only thing I read. That's the only page I flipped to. I don't know.
Did you just flip to it, really? I mean, you didn't, search?
It's one of the first pages. But, yeah, that's just a page that I flipped to, and I just read the underlined things and the bolded words, nothing else. And
another thing that happened was, if we're not doing the rosary at night, we do the Divine Mercy Chaplet, or we watch a Catholic video. And to find out how these made a difference in his life now is so beautiful, because or I want him to go to a Catholic youth retreat, and there were many failures in that arena. He'd say, Mom, I hate retreats. I'm going to hate you. I want to go on these stupid Catholic retreats. So I'm like, I keep hearing that this is the way that youth have encounters with God, so I didn't give up. And finally, he went on a retreat that he liked, and I thought, okay, if this doesn't work out, I could lose our mother-son relationship. That's how worried I was, because he hated them so much. And so me forcing him on yet another retreat could really backfire. But it was a Steubenville week-long retreat. He loved it, thank God. And I knew he loved it because he said it was all right.
Or don't ever make
I tried to play it down, but
I could tell, I was like, okay, he's playing down that he actually really liked this one. So that was impactful. And then a video that a priest friend of mine emailed and just loved it. He said he was overcome by the Spirit watching this video on YouTube, which I'll put in the Queen of Peace Media YouTube version of this video. I'll put it below it. It's Sister Claire. I believe it's called All or Nothing. Do you want to say how that impacted you, Christian?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that Steubenville conference, even though it was amazing.
Not Stupidville.
Steubenville.
Yes.
Steubenville conference, sorry.
It did sound like that. I know you didn't say that. Stupidville.
Even though it was amazing, that was during my freshman year summer, so I wasn't even involved in anything like that at that point. But that is an amazing retreat, and I do recommend it. It's more of a fun, uplifting, different look on your faith, more than the traditional just sit in adoration and just that's it. I do not like those retreats.
Did you cry?
No, I didn't cry. It wasn't that type of. I don't cry when I'm overtaken by the Holy Spirit, I guess you could say. I'm just happy.
He gets giddy.
More jittery.
He gets giddy.
More. So there was this video on Sister Claire, and she's an amazing sister who was an amazing actor and singer. Wait, not singer. And just, amazing actor and singer. And she was making it in Hollywood, or her version of Hollywood, and she was drinking and smoking with her friends and living that type of life, but she would also be going on retreats where she was falling in love with Jesus, and she had this sort of calling to be a famous nun. So I just really related to her in the fact that she was involved in all that and she was able to get herself out. And I'll let whoever wants to see that video and not spoil too much, but she was a very big inspiration for that type of change in my life.
And, sometimes we'd have Father Mike Schmidt.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, and he mentioned that a couple times. Some things he said would impact him. And would you say the other guy with the dreadlocks, was that something?
Oh, yeah. There's this guy, crazy evangelizer. He's ridiculous. He's amazing. He's got these big dreadlocks, and he walks around spreading his story, healing people. Todd White. He's got a channel on YouTube called Lifestyle Christianity, and we do that as our prayer sometimes, and he just goes around and he's sharing his story, and he's healing people left and right. And even though he wasn't really an inspiration for just that particular thing, he's just an amazing person, and I recommend anyone, even if you don't like the faith, he's just such a character that you can just fall in love with, because he's got these big dreadlocks, he's got this muscular body, he's just walking around praising Jesus, and he just does some things that I would never even think of doing in public. And it's just
so I was guessing that the appeal for Christian was that his major sin, which St. John Bosco talked about in his book of dreams, I really recommend that. He would be shown by God why the teenage boys he was taking care of were going to hell. He saw them sliding down, and one of the sins that was trapping them was people pleasing. It was peer pressure was pulling them down into hell, and he would see them get sucked. And so Christian's watching this guy who has no fear of what anyone thinks of him. He could care less by virtue of what he says, does, and looks. He's just all Jesus and has really died to self. And so what happened, what did you take to confession? Because this is yet another one of these Catholic things. We got the Catholic videos, we got the adoration, we got the rosary going. This was another thing that helped us was when you went to confession.
Well, I've never told anyone what I've done at confession. I've just never thought of doing that. But
It's okay, you don't have to keep that secret.
I confessed peer pressure and needing to be liked by everyone. That was a big problem for me. I wasn't so much addicted to the feeling of weed and the feeling of being high. I was more addicted to being liked by my friends and fitting in. And if my friends weren't doing it, I would not do it at all, type of thing. It's just more of a norm in high school. To just sort of enjoy the quote-unquote fun things in life, even though they're very hurtful, and it doesn't make you feel good in the long run.
So let me ask you a question, because it's about we've got to get into some prayer before we go. But
and 3 days ago, I got to tell you what happened.
Okay, all right. Let's tell us that one. But I also want to hear a little bit about Christian's experience with his friends, because I think that's another big thing, and how they reacted to you. You alluded to a little bit, but go ahead, Christine, if you want to talk about your what happened 3 days ago thing.
Okay, so very briefly, he's upstairs 3 days ago. He promised me, this is such mother blackmail, that he'd read my book, The Warning, Testimonies and Prophecies of the Illumination of Conscience. And so he's reading that, and he gets struck by the Holy Spirit. And he comes down into this very room, and he's bouncing around like crazy with joy. I've seen him struck by the Holy Spirit 2 other times in my life like that. And he was so overcome, he started to say what he was called to do. And he was so excited about shedding peer pressure. It looked like a weight had just dropped off of him, and because the weight had been so heavy and he was suddenly so light, he couldn't stop floating up. And so he'd do these silly dances, and he's like, I'm pushing the peer pressure away, I'm pushing it away. And he was dancing and happy, and then all these ideas suddenly popped into his head. Like I would say, hey, I think you're very musical, you should learn guitar. I don't want to learn guitar. Hey, I think you'd be a great singer. I don't want to learn how to sing. Hey, I think you should do, something with Queen of Peace Media and do a podcast or something. So all these things that I would think of that he'd be great at, that would evangelize the world and heal so many teens, then suddenly this pops to the surface of his head. He wants to do all of it so much that he's taking action and making these things happen. Not only that, he wants to go back to his school when he feels ready and give his testimony of how he was smoking and the peer pressure and help kids. Like it turned on a dime from being consumed by it to wanting to help others get out of it.
That's amazing.
So
and that's
that
where
was
the
a
awe and the
joy.
courage comes
that
in.
was a mother's, that's where the joy was, just seeing all these little bits of annoying my son with the Catholic faith suddenly pop out in a joyful way rather than an irritated way was a mother's dream, really.
Yeah, before I read her book, I kept on having doubts, and once I just read what's to come, and I just knew that I made the right decision just then and there, and it just brought me so much joy. So I know you want to talk about my friends, so we can just get right into that. Yeah. My friends were very supportive, and they, even though they were more bummed out that I wasn't going to be as with them as much, because I hate to say it, but I was sort of this, even though I was doing the same things that they were doing, I was still a really kind person, and I made sure everyone that was hanging out with us felt loved and just things like that. And people really enjoyed that, and they enjoyed my presence. So I think they were just more if they're your real friends, they're gonna stay your friends,
Right.
and they're gonna understand. They may be sad about it, but if they're not your real friends, then they're not your real friends, and you're just gonna have to accept that. It's really an unhealthy relationship, and I suggest people get out of that. So it was more my friends they're more sad about it, and very supportive, a lot of them. So, and just talking about how they'll miss me. I wrote a script that night. I went to my mom and we're just talking about, I just wrote down how I've been feeling peer pressured into this, and I know it's wrong, and I know it's hurtful for me, and I've been trying to make a compromise, and I just can't because it's been making me feel horrible inside, and I just choose God or choose a compromise of God, which is you can't really be neutral in things like this. You just gotta pick a side, and just with everything that's going on, it's pretty scary time. So just wanted to make sure I was on the right side.
Amen.
Amen.
You're on the right side.
Amen. I couldn't be more grateful to God, and I couldn't be more proud of you, Christian.
Oh, thank you, Mom.
Me too. Oh my gosh, I love you guys.
Love you, Kendra.
How are you going to do a closing prayer through tears?
Okay, well, here's what we do, Christian. If you want to add anything at the end to pray for our listeners and our viewers, please do so. I'll just start it off. Lord God, I ask you to blanket every viewer, every listener with your spirit of love, of mercy. And if anyone is a parent out there or a youth or an adult dealing with this issue, either in person or with someone you love, don't give up. Don't give up. The sacraments are there for you. Mother Mary's there for you. The Trinity is there for you. The saints are there for you. And fight the good fight. Fight it with love. Try what I did with Christian was to serve him when he was super annoying. I would go up and I would give him a sandwich, something that I'm not very good at, or I'd clean up his room, or I'd do something nice because I knew that that was a way I could reach him and that he knew he was loved. So even when your kids rebel and they don't want to have anything to do with you, fight the good fight, because one day I pray you all will have a moment like I had 3 days ago where your child is jumping up and down in front of you with joy and says, God is great. God is so great. And may you find something more and find your way home. God bless you.